What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a classic banger. Hope you guys enjoy. Drop a like if you do. And also, why do you not follow me on Twitter? That's honestly stupid. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you're making a mistake, all right? Click the link at the very top of the description, or just go on Twitter right now. Type in The Goblin with 3 N's on the very end, and you're going to find me on Twitter. Hit that follow button. You stay up to date on all my tweets. I always tweet out whenever I'm going live, whenever I'm dropping a video. You know well in advance whenever stuff's happening. Hey, it's the place to be, dude. I tweet quality stuff, all right? If you want to see my mugshot, all right, I just recently got my mugshot. It's on my Twitter. Go follow me there. You're going to want to see it. It's wonderful. Without further ado, let's dive right into the video. So, this happened quite a while ago, back in my high school days, and as many of you are probably familiar with, I had a good friend of mine named Michael who usually, when I didn't feel like going to school, I'd get up to some goon shit with. That's exactly what happened on this particular day, right? I go over to Michael's house, and, we already had our day planned out, which was not very usual. Normally, we just kind of wing it, but on this day, we knew what was going on, right? I was going over to Michael's house. He was already there with another buddy of his who I didn't know that well, but I think I'd met the guy like once or twice at this point. But we were all going to trip together. He'd recently gotten some acid. He was selling it, and I really wanted some. Michael was a guy who obviously his stuff was nothing like Ashton's, but it was still good enough, and he was a good friend of mine. I like to shop at the homies, and if I can go to a place like a one-stop shop where I can get my drugs and then also consume them there, count me in. And that was Michael. It was great. So I get ready to go. I get out of my house and I walk on over to Michael's. He lived close enough where I could just walk over. It was like maybe a 10-minute walk tops. That's exactly what I did. I just strolled on over. It wasn't even worth the drive. Like, it was a waste of time and effort to get in my car and drive. So I just walked over to Michael's, right? Some days I drive it. It depended on how I was feeling, but I was going to trip. So I was getting ready for that nice walk home. So I walk over to Michael's house. I get in there, I dap him up, and he's sitting there with his friend who we're going to call Larry. I say hey to Larry, and they're playing some zombies together, so I kind of sit back, watch them play some zombies, and I end up rolling a blunt for them while they're playing. We smoke up a little bit, I buy a couple tabs off of Michael, and I pop them both. I'm getting ready for a good trip. Michael's talking up the acid, he's really gassing it up, talking about how good it is, which, I'll admit, it honestly wasn't that good. This is one of the weaker trips that I can remember, but it got the job done, and, once you guys get further into the story, you'll kind of understand why. I'm kind of glad that I didn't trip that hard on this day. It was definitely a waste of a trip, but we'll get to that. So I've got my tabs down the hatch at this point. While I'm watching them play some zombies, we're smoking some weed, having a blast. It's a good time. And as the day progresses, maybe an hour goes by, and I definitely start to feel the come up, I get that classic kind of I always struggle with wording, or describing how it feels. Just that tingling, like, nice feeling, dude. That energy going through you. That buzz. You just feel it all through you. It's like you got a little vibrator installed in your body, and that shit's going off. It feels wonderful, all right? Like a little phone vibrator. Like the PS, the 360 controllers. Those motherfuckers vibrated like hell. Like one of those, just like all through your body. It feels great, right? So I'm feeling that little come up. I'm just buzzing. I'm feeling great. And Michael eventually gets up and says that he's got a serve coming over. So he goes and he lets this guy in, and in comes a dude who we're going to call Ben. Ben's someone who I'd never met before, and I never saw again after this day, thank God. Ben comes in and he sits down with us. We're all just chilling out, having a good time. And it turns out that he's there to do the same thing as I was, right? He was just going to buy some acid with Michael and then kick it with us, So he grabs a tab from Michael. He's sitting there watching us all chill out. And he starts asking a bunch of questions about acid. He starts asking like, oh, are you guys tripping right now? And once we tell him yes, he's just going off. He's like, oh, how do you feel? Like, what's it like? How are you, like, how are you guys so chill right now? And it becomes clear very quickly that this guy is in way over his head. He has just bought something that he's not ready for. If you've already bought it and you still have that many questions, you're in over your head, all right? You got to take a step back, do a little more research. This guy did not do any of that. He's asking us these questions, and he's got the tab in his fucking hand, all right? So we're just sitting there and I'm answering his questions, and I'll admit he was getting a little irritating. He was kind of killing my vibe here. But I put up with it. I was trying to just be polite, answer his questions, because I figured he was Michael's friend. This isn't my play. I can't be a dick to the guy. So whatever. He's irritating. Okay, a lot of people are. I'll put up with it. So I'm answering his questions, telling him, trying to explaining how it makes me feel, he's like, oh, what are you seeing right now? And I kind of explain like, oh, it's not really that crazy, it's just kind of like, almost like things are adjusted a little bit. Like everything's just slightly got like a texture to it, I'm kind of trying. And he was like, oh, dude, you're not seeing like dragons or anything. And I'm like, no, just picture like you went into Photoshop and put a texture over everything in the room. But then that texture, like it's animated, like a GIF, Everything around you has just been made into a GIF, Like that's honestly, that's probably one of the best ways to explain acid now that I think about it. That really is a good way to do it. But either way, so I'm just describing it to this guy, and I'm paying a little less attention to him. Some time goes by, and it turns out he took his tab. He wasn't saving it for later. He wasn't just taking it home. No, he sat there and popped it. So I know immediately I'm in for a fun ride. And I didn't know he popped it at first. I didn't realize he did until he asked us how long he needs to keep it on his tongue. And Michael was just like, oh, I don't know, like 10, 20 minutes. Not that long, 5 minutes, whatever, dude. Just until you feel like there's nothing left on it. Until it's real soggy, So that's what he did. He kept it on his tongue for a while. And after he popped the tab, he was pretty quiet. I think he was just kind of waiting for the come up. So we're all chilling out. We're seshing a little bit. We ended up rolling up some more blunts. I remember myself and Michael were playing zombies, and we had Larry and Ben on the blunt rolling station, so they rolled up. We sparked up a couple more blunts, and I was feeling good. After we smoked those second blunts, I started to trip a lot harder. Before, we smoked it all, I was having a really light trip, and even after the come up, I didn't really trip very hard at all. It was super light visuals, and it was almost entirely more of like a mind and body trip where I was just kind of giggling at stuff more, speaking more freely, one of those kind of trips. But after the blunt is when the visuals really hit me harder. And then I started seeing, those nice patterns show up on every single wall in the room. I'm looking down at the couch and the texture on it and the little pattern on the fabric, and it just looks sick to me. And I'm looking around the room and it's just badass, That's when I really started to appreciate the trip a little bit. But it was kind of short-lived, that little like buzz in visuals. I think it was only caused by the blunt. Because almost right after we finished smoking, Ben starts tweaking. You could tell that he's coming up now. Because after we stop smoking, right, we get back to playing our zombies. I don't remember how fucking high we got. Who knows, dude? Who knows what round we got to? Ben's tweaking, and he stands up. He stands up, and he's like looking down at the ground. And you can just tell that this guy is twacked out of his mind right now. So Michael tells him, he's like, yo, dude, like, sit down, bro, like, have a seat. And he's like, nah, bro, like, I'm not comfortable in that chair right now. I just want to stand, So we're like, okay, maybe he's just lit. He just wants to stand. At this point, I could kind of tell he's a little uncomfortable, but I didn't think anything was wrong. I was like, okay, homeboy's probably never tripped before. Not like I asked. He took his tab. Just looks like he just went balls to the wall with it. So, hope he's having fun. So we play a little more zombies. And Larry eventually gets up and says he has to leave, which was definitely the right thing to do. I wish I followed in Larry's footsteps here, but I sure as hell didn't, right? So Larry leaves, he daps us all up, he daps Ben up, and as he goes to dap Ben up, Ben just like is not responding. He's like, all right, Ben, I'm dipping, and Ben's like, all right, bro, peace. And he sticks his hand out to dap up with Ben, and Ben is just not giving his hand back, and it's a problem. So Larry's like, all right, whatever. Larry just leaves us with this mess. So now I'm sitting here with Michael, and I'm realizing pretty quickly that I'm not really going to be able to trip very hard because I'm now going to have to worry about this guy who's really starting to tweak. This guy, I can already tell he's going to have a bad trip. He's already having a bad trip. Like, he's not even responding to people around him. It's getting ugly. So Michael's like, yo, Ben, dude, like, are you okay? What's going on? He's like, dude, I feel crazy. And he just kept repeating that. He's like, I feel crazy right now, bro. Like, I don't know what's going on. He started like really like clenching his fists and moving his fingers a lot, almost as if he was like just about to freak the fuck out. So I'm sitting there watching him, and he's just tense as hell. And it's rubbing off on me. I'm starting to get uncomfortable. My trip's going downhill fast. I'm feeling a little tense here. And I'm like, all right, we got to do something about about this. So I tell him, I'm like, yo, dude, you want to just like get something to drink or something? You want to like, I don't know, we could like go get a glass of water for you or something. And he's like, I feel like I'm about to puke. So Michael points him to the bathroom. He's like, oh, dude, literally the door right across from my bedroom, dude. My bathroom's right there. So Ben goes to the bathroom, and Michael he had to tell him like 6 times. He's like, yeah, dude, it's right there. He got up and even like pushed him in the right direction. So Ben eventually, he goes to the bathroom. We figure, okay, maybe he's going to let out one of those little acid pukes. I've yacked while I'm tripping before. It happens. Sometimes it's kind of fun. It's just a part of the experience. So we figure, all right, he's coming up too hard. Maybe he feels overwhelmed. We'll just make sure he's all right. And we get back to playing some games, and we kind of forget he's in the bathroom. We forget he's in the bathroom for a long fucking time. I don't know how long passed, in all honesty, but I'd say it was probably like an hour. He was in there for a long time because we got really far in zombies. We had like just started a new round when he went in the bathroom. And I remember we got far as hell in. We both had good ass guns, dude. I'm talking, I had a ray gun. He had like the M60 or some shit. Just good straps on deck. And he was, the whole entire match, he was not present. And I remember after we finished that game is when Michael was like, yo, where's Ben? And I was like, oh shit, you're right. Like, he's in the bathroom. we should go check on Ben. So we both get up and go to his bathroom door, and Michael knocks on it, and he's like, Ben, are you okay, dude? And he at first he doesn't respond, so we knock again, and we're like, Ben, yo, we're like, are you good? And he's like, yeah, man, like, I don't know. At first he said yeah, and then he's like, I don't know, man, like, I don't know. So we go in the bathroom at this point. We're like, fuck it, dude, like, this guy, like, we gotta go in the bathroom, right? So we go in, and I realized very quickly that sending him to the bathroom was probably the biggest mistake we made. This man did not throw up. He did not have to puke. Instead, he was standing in the mirror. And I know from experience that even when you're having a good trip, standing in the mirror is very overwhelming, okay? Just looking at yourself in the mirror while you're tripping balls is not a good time. It can get very overwhelming. It just, thoughts go through your head that are crazy. It's hard to explain. It's like you enter the Matrix. So when I walked in the bathroom with Michael and saw him with his hands on the counter, squeezing the shit out of the edge of the counter, I'm talking like you could see all the veins in his hands. He was squeezing it so intensely. Staring into that fucking mirror, I was like, holy shit, we fucked up. We should have never sent him into this bathroom. So Michael goes over and he kind of like grabs him because at this point he knows what's going on. He's like, oh, this guy's freaking out right now, dude. Like this guy's twacked out. We got to get him out of here. So Michael goes over and kind of puts his arm around him and like guides him back to his room, right? So now we're all sitting in Michael's room again. He sits Ben down, and Ben is just once again freaking out. Ben tells us, we're trying to ask him how he feels a little bit. We're like, yo, just talk to us, bro. How do you feel? Are you having a good time, a bad time? We're just trying to get him to say some shit, trying to help any way we can with his trip, because it's clearly not a good one. We can tell he's having a horrible time. And he tells us, I remember this he tells us that it feels like he's falling. He's like, dude, it feels like I'm falling constantly. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, how do I even stop that? Like, the thing is, like, I don't think his bad trip was visual. It's not like he was seeing scary shit, and he never really mentioned seeing anything to us. I think his bad trip was just all in his head. Like, he was just freaking out. He's sitting there and he's like, dude, it just feels like I'm falling constantly. Like, there's this feeling in my body, So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to tell him, I'm like, dude, you're not falling. Like, grab onto the chair you're sitting on, bro. Like feel the things around you. Like, they're there, like they're real. You're not falling. You can tell you're not falling. We're not falling either, And we're trying to reason with him, but it's very hard to reason with someone who's tweaking out that hard. So finally, we think, let's just put on some, like, music videos. So Michael goes on his, he goes on his TV, he puts on some music videos. I think he played, I don't remember what he played, but probably some A$AP Rocky videos or some shit. Just some good music videos for while you're tripping. I remember he had a playlist, but I don't know what ended up getting played this time around. So we'll just go with, like, a Rocky video or some shit. So we're bumping this fucking music video, and the visuals are great. We're nodding along, having a hoop. And whenever you're tripping, you don't watch the music videos for the song. Sure, the song is a great part of it, but the visuals, I swear to God, they could drop an opera track. And as long as it has the visuals that some of the Rocky videos used to have, they're set, dude. I could watch that shit on loop all day while I'm tripping. Doesn't matter what the content is. All I care about are the visuals, right? So we're watching this, kind of getting into it. It seemed like at first Ben was, at least getting better. He was looking at the TV, and I kind of kept looking over to him to just make sure he wasn't like staring at the ground again or tweaking out. And it seemed like he was watching the video and kind of nodding his head a little bit. And I'm like, okay, maybe we figured it out. Maybe he'll have a good trip now. So we're all sitting there, and we fucked up real bad. Listen, sending him... If there's anything you can learn from this video, I hope you all learn, like, this is not what to do around someone having a bad trip. But we were stupid. This is a lot earlier into me tripping, I was a lot less experienced with acid at this point. And also, we were just fucking morons, okay? So... We suggest smoking some weed. We're like, yo, Ben, like, we still have a little bit of weed. Like, why don't you rip the bong? Michael's got a fucking bong, dude. We can pack that thing up. You don't have to smoke a whole blunt. You can just take a little rip. Michael's like, yeah, bro, let's smoke some weed. And I guess neither of us had really thought to debrief him on, how weed has the opposite effect when you're tripping. It doesn't calm you down. It actually makes you trip harder. Neither of us, we just figured it would help. We were like, dude, we want to smoke weed. We're tripping balls right now. Maybe it'll make him feel better. So we packed the fucking bong up. And I remember Michael hits that bitch. And he passes it over to Ben. He's like, Ben, you get Tuesdays on it. Ben takes the bong. He rips that shit hard as hell. I'm talking, I was expecting that shit to get to me. It did not. Ripped it all the way through. And Michael had a fat bowl. I remember you could pack almost like a gram into that thing at a time. A fat one, dude. A nice fucking size, right? And he just, he one-shots the fuck out of it. Destroys it. It did not make it to me. So he takes that rip and he passes this cash bong to me. And I'm like, damn, dude. Nice fucking rip. And he's apologizing. He's like, oh, my bad. Like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm really sorry. And I'm like, bro, don't worry, man. You need it more than me. Like, don't stress. And he keeps apologizing about it. And I can tell right away, like, that hit just instantly sent this man's brain into overdrive, dude. He would not shut up about cashing. He's like, my bad, I didn't mean to cash it. I'm sorry. And then he paused for a second, He'd sit there and they'd be like, yo, I didn't mean to cash that. My bad, guys. He just kept repeating himself over and over and over. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like, bro, I don't even know how far into this trip we are at this point. I'm barely even tripping. There's almost no visuals, and my mental part I haven't been able to have any fun with because I'm sitting here trip-sitting this fucking guy who popped a tab when he definitely shouldn't have. And I'm not going to lie, I was in a kind of pissed off mood at this point. I was, like the weed, I was just sitting there, and I remember the whole trip was balancing on whether this bowl would cure this man or not. I was sitting there, and I was just like, dude, I'm so desperate to just chill out and have a good time. And instead, we've been trip-sitting this fucking guy for so long, dude. I was just not having it. I was in no condition for it. Like, if I was sober, I probably would have done this much differently and better, and maybe I could have helped the guy. But me tripping and Michael tripping was not a good recipe. We did not sign up for this at all, So I'm just getting impatient with it. And Michael did some shit that I will say was kind of questionable. So he tells Ben and myself, he's like, yo, let's go out to the garage and smoke a cigarette, right? The weed, we could smoke in his room all day long, but the cigarettes, we always have to go out to the garage because obviously you don't want that shit sticking in the house. And it's his mom's house too. So we go out to the garage and we're smoking cigarettes. And we go out on the driveway. And Ben's kind of walking towards the end of the driveway. And Michael pulls me aside. And he's like, dude, I can't deal with this shit anymore. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel you, but like, what can we do about this? And he's like, I don't know either. And I'm like, how did he get here? Like, is there any way we could get him a ride or some shit? And Michael's like, I'm pretty sure he drove. Like, I think that's his car, And he points out his car. He's parked in the street. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is fucked. Like, I feel kind of guilty, just doing this. But at the same time, like, Michael's fed up. It's his house. So if he wants him out, I'm not going to sit here and tell him otherwise, all right? I felt kind of bad, but also at the same time, I was like, Michael, bro, on the lowest of keys, you've read my mind, So now we're sitting there, and I'm like, well, we could get him an Uber, Like, we could just get him an Uber to his crib. But then, like, what if he tweaks out on the Uber driver or some shit, Or, like, what about his car? All this shit. So we're talking about this, and Ben's still just wandering. He's just standing on the end of the driveway. We could talk about this for 10 years. This guy wouldn't have moved a muscle off the driveway. We're just debating on what to do with this guy. And Michael, he's like, yo, instead of getting him an Uber, I have an idea, right? So he goes on his Snapchat. He goes on every app he's got, and he's hitting people up. He's hitting up all his serves, right? He's inviting people over. And he's like, listen, dude, we could just invite someone over and then just kind of like get them to kick it with him, Like, invite someone over and just offer them some cash to, like, drive him home, And then once they get him in the car and realize he's too confused to know his own address, it's too late, They're, he has to care for him now. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, Michael, that's not a terrible idea, So he's hitting people up, and eventually he gets someone who's down to do it. He hits someone up, and at first he's just trying to serve people, but he can't find anyone to come buy anything. So eventually he switches to, like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to offer someone some tabs to give him a ride. And of course someone comes through. Free tabs for a ride, no brainer. Do that shit immediately. So I don't know who the fuck it was, dude. Michael knew a lot of people that I didn't know because he was a grade below me. So he went to school with, like, a whole different group of people. So in comes dude fucking Johnson. I don't know, Mr. Who the hell, we'll call him that, right? Mr. Who the hell pulls up, and he was driving, I remember this, he was driving a pickup truck. And as soon as he pulls up, it's like he was like sending a dog off to the shelter. He like gets Ben. He's like, yo, Ben, dude. He tells him, he's like, Ben, you want to go to McDonald's, dude? You trying to get some, like, ice cream or some shit? And Ben's like, yeah, dude, I'd be down. And Michael's like, okay, bro, like, where are your car keys? Like, do you have those with you? And I'm just standing there. I'm bewildered this entire time. I'm in shock that Michael pulled enough strings to somehow figure out how to get this guy out of his house without making him drive his car home. Because I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, at this point, as scummy, as shitty as it is, call me a scumbag. I want him out. I just want to trip balls, right? So Michael's, he's like, dude, let's go to McDonald's, bro. We got a ride right here. Hop in the car, right? So he fucking points him to the pickup truck, walks him over to that shit, and he goes over to the driver's side and hands dude fucking McGee, whatever his name is, the tabs he was going to give him. I don't remember how many tabs it was. It was like 1 or 2. I don't know. It wasn't anything crazy, but a ride's a ride, right? And he tells him, he's like, yo, just give him a ride home, just take him home. Daps the dude up, comes back over, and the pickup truck pulls off. And after that, Michael's like, yo, dude, just in case he drops him back here, we should, like, leave for a little bit. So I'm like, okay, I'm kind of down, where do you want to go? And Michael's like, well, why don't we just go for a walk? We've been tripping the whole time. We haven't done anything. Let's just take a stroll through the neighborhood. So that's exactly what we did. I remember we walked all through the neighborhood. We walked up to a park, which was actually, if you guys have been watching my stories for a while, there's quite a few acid stories that took place at this park. A few with Michael. I ruined a pair of jeans. I fell in the mud in one of the stories I remember very vividly, but that's not for this video. We take our little stroll. We actually, during our walk, we saw the pickup truck do like a loop around. He had to hook like a U-turn to get out of the neighborhood, And dude's still in there getting his fucking ride to wherever the hell he was going. Never saw that fucking guy again. Never saw Ben again. I don't know what Michael did with the guy. I don't know what happened to his car keys. But after that walk, we went back to Michael's. I chilled out. We played some Xbox a little bit, smoked a little more weed, and I walked home. Honestly, it was a shit trip, dude. It was terrible. I did not sign up to trip sit anyone, and instead, that's exactly what I did for probably 85% of the duration of this trip. I didn't really specify times in this video, but this took place, this kid was at Michael's house for at least 5 hours. Minimum. He was there for a long-ass time, dude. It was not a hoot. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, gamers.